Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in the world of coin collecting, a journey that takes us into the realm of error coins, minting mistakes, and the incredible values that can emerge when something seemingly ordinary becomes extraordinary. And in this case we're talking about the 1990 1-cent coin that has been rumored to carry a staggering value of $129 million because of its errors and mistakes, a number that sounds almost impossible to believe when you consider that the coin itself started life as nothing more than a simple penny meant for circulation, yet through a combination of rarity, error types, collector frenzy, and historical intrigue, this small coin has become one of the most talked about treasures in numismatic history. And as we explore its story, we'll not only uncover why errors make coins so valuable but also the different varieties of mistakes that could contribute to a coin reaching such astronomical worth. So get ready, because this isn't just about a coin, it's about the mysteries of the US Mint, the quirks of history, and the passion of collectors who see more than just a cent when they look at a coin like the 1990 penny. To begin with, we need to understand why a coin minted in 1990 with the Denver Mint mark could become so significant, since 1990 was a year when billions of 1-cent coins were produced, most of them zinc-based with a thin copper plating following the 1982 switch from solid copper cents to the copper-plated zinc composition we know today. And that means by default a 1990 penny isn't rare at all. They were made in massive quantities and most of them are still in circulation or stored away in jars, so for one of them to become the subject of million-dollar discussions, it has to have something spectacularly unusual about it. Something that sets it apart in such a dramatic way that collectors view it as a once-in-a-lifetime piece. And that's where errors and mistakes enter the story, because coin errors aren't just small defects. They can represent rare minting anomalies that slip past the mint's quality control and end up in circulation, and depending on how dramatic the mistake is, the value can rise from a few cents to thousands, or even millions. Now, when it comes to the 1990 penny, collectors speculate that certain errors could have contributed to its legendary status, such as double dies where the design is imprinted more than once due to hubbing misalignments, creating a doubling effect that is most noticeable on lettering, numbers, or design details like Lincoln's profile or the date, and if such doubling were extreme and clear, it could be one of the most desired errors in modern coinage. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin's blank planchet isn't seated properly in the press, so the design is struck partially off the surface, leading to dramatic crescent shapes of blank metal combined with partial designs, and coins with major off-center strikes showing clear dates and mint marks are among the most valuable because they still allow identification of their origins, something error collectors prize highly. And then we have broad strikes, die cracks, die breaks, clipped planchets, and even the extremely rare wrong planchet errors where a penny design might have been struck on a foreign coin blank or on a blank intended for a dime, nickel, or another denomination, all of which create fascinating anomalies that can make a coin unique. The 1990 penny could also carry transitional errors, where the coin was struck with a wrong composition or an incorrect die pairing, and transitional errors are some of the rarest because they represent moments of change within the mint's practices. And although 1990 wasn't officially a transition year, mistakes do happen, dies can be mixed up, and strange combinations can occur that shouldn't exist. And when they do, collectors go wild over them, assigning values that are orders of magnitude higher than the face value of the coin. Imagine a 1990 penny struck on a 1989 planchet, or even more incredible, on a foreign coin blank mistakenly fed into the machine, creating a coin with the wrong weight or wrong metal composition, something that would be instantly noticeable under testing and highly coveted by collectors. And when you think about how few of these mistakes could ever happen, it becomes clear why the numbers start climbing into the millions, because rarity plus demand creates astronomical prices. Another possible error that could explain the 1990 penny's multi-million-dollar reputation is the so-called no mint mark, or misplaced mint mark variety. Because while most 1990 pennies clearly show the D mint mark from the Denver Mint, mistakes in die preparation or polishing could result in missing, faint, or misplaced marks. And when you have such a feature tied to a coin from a year when most collectors expect it to exist, it creates a sensation, similar to the famous 1982 no-mint mark dime or the 1922 plain cent, both of which skyrocketed in value because they deviated from the norm in ways collectors didn't expect. In addition to physical striking errors, the coin's condition can also play a massive role in its value, and a 1990 penny in pristine condition with a dramatic error could easily fetch extraordinary sums at auction, especially if it's graded at the highest levels by services like PCGS or NGC, where designations like MS67 or higher bring premium prices even without major errors. But combined with unique mistakes, the price climbs into jaw-dropping territory, and when the numismatic community begins speculating about a coin being one of a kind or virtually unique, the sky truly is the limit for how high its auction price can go. Now, why would a value as high as $129 million be attached to this particular coin, you might wonder, and the answer lies not only in the coin's physical rarity but also in the narratives that build around it. Because collectors and investors love stories, they love myths of coins that slipped past the mint's scrutiny, that somehow survived decades in circulation unnoticed, and when those stories catch fire, they spread across the numismatic world and into mainstream media, drawing in both serious collectors and casual treasure hunters, all of whom drive demand and fuel skyrocketing values. And the 1990 penny with errors has exactly that kind of legend, a story of a simple penny worth 1 cent suddenly revealed to be worth more than entire treasure hoards. A story that plays into the dream of every collector who ever checked their pocket change hoping to find something special. To understand why this story resonates so much, think about the psychology of rarity. People are naturally drawn to what they can have, and when a coin is believed to be unique, or among only a handful in existence, the competition to own it becomes fierce. And when competition is fierce among wealthy collectors, prices soar, sometimes to levels that defy ordinary logic. And this is why a 1990 penny could reach a valuation of $129 million. Because in a world where art, stamps, and rare collectibles sell for similar or even greater sums, a coin that represents a blend of history, error, rarity, and myth is perfectly capable of achieving such status. But let's go deeper into the specific possibilities of errors that could contribute to such immense value. A double-struck coin where the design is imprinted twice at different rotations, creating a surreal overlapping effect, would certainly be highly desirable. A mule error, where the obverse of one coin is paired with the reverse of another denomination, would be nearly priceless since mule errors are among the rarest mistakes in minting history. A proof-like strike mistakenly issued into circulation would also be extraordinary, and even planchet errors like lamination flaws, where the surface metal peels or cracks in unique patterns, could catch the eye of collectors if tied to a rare date like 1990 with a Denver Mint mark. Combine any of these possibilities with an immaculate condition coin that has been preserved for decades without wear, and you have the perfect recipe for a numismatic legend. Furthermore, the 1990 penny exists within an era when the U.S. Mint was producing vast numbers of coins with increasingly automated processes, which paradoxically increases the fascination with mistakes, because errors become rarer when technology is designed to prevent them, and thus when one slips through, it is seen as even more special than errors from earlier, less precise minting eras, making a 1990 error coin stand out even more sharply in the eyes of collectors. The passion of numismatists also fuels the market, because collectors are not just buying metal discs, they are buying history, stories, and symbols of luck, and for someone to own the 1990 penny with legendary errors is to own a piece of numismatic mythology, a coin that bridges the everyday with the extraordinary, and that's why prices climb into the millions, tens of millions, and in this case, the unimaginable figure of $129 million. And when we talk about such numbers, we must also consider the role of auctions, where wealthy collectors battle each other in bidding wars that drive prices higher and higher, often fueled by the prestige of owning a coin that no one else in the world can claim. And when the gavel comes down and a coin sells for an astronomical price, it cements its place in history and creates headlines that spread the story even further, attracting new generations of collectors eager to find their own treasures, and this cycle keeps the legend alive. Next, 2000 1-cent coin. Today we are going to dive into one of the most fascinating and captivating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that takes us deep into the year 2000, to a coin that many would overlook at first glance, a coin that you might think is just another everyday piece of change rattling in your pocket or lost at the bottom of a drawer, but in reality, the 2000 1-cent coin has a tale that has sent ripples throughout the numismatic community, because this particular coin, with its seemingly humble denomination of just 1 cent, has been reported to be worth as much as $1.72 million thanks to its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and the possibilities surrounding its creation and survival. And in today's long journey, we will uncover exactly why this coin has become the stuff of legend, why collectors and investors alike are captivated by its history, and how tiny imperfections, invisible to the casual observer, have elevated it from spare change to a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. So buckle up as we take you through the story of this 2000 penny, because this is not just about a coin, it's about history, economics, chance, rarity, and above all the thrilling hunt for treasures hidden in plain sight, starting with the fact that the Denver Mint, marked with its D Mint mark, produced millions upon millions of these cents in the year 2000. And most of them look and feel exactly the same, bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the classic memorial reverse design that had been in use for decades, and the typical copper-plated zinc composition that had been the standard since 1982. But within that massive sea of ordinary coins, a few pieces slipped through with errors so dramatic and so rare that they became instantly desirable. One of the most famous being the double die errors, where certain coins from this year and minting show clear signs of doubling in the inscriptions, such as Liberty, the date 2000, or even the motto, In God We Trust. And when you see this doubling, especially when it is crisp and strong, it immediately elevates the coin into a league of its own, and collectors are willing to pay astronomical prices to secure one in mint state condition. Yet doubling was not the only mistake that occurred during that year, because the Denver Mint also produced off-center strikes where the coin blank was not perfectly aligned with the dies, leading to dramatic off-center images that sometimes leave Lincoln's portrait partially cut off or the reverse design pushed to the very edge, and the more off-centered and the clearer the design still remains, the more valuable the coin becomes, with extreme examples where both the date and mint mark are still visible, commanding some of the highest premiums imaginable. And then there are the broad strikes, coins that escape the restraining collar during striking, which gives them a larger, flatter, stretched-out appearance that is unlike anything you would normally see in circulation. And these errors, though less flashy to some, are incredibly appealing to specialists who understand how difficult it is to find them in uncirculated condition. And if we go deeper, we also uncover transitional errors and planchet mistakes that sometimes happen when the mint accidentally used an incorrect blank intended for another denomination. Though rare for the 2000 penny, the possibility of one being struck on a dime or nickel planchet cannot be entirely dismissed, and such an error would make the coin's value skyrocket even further. But the most intriguing errors from this year are the multiple strike errors, coins that were struck 2 or more times either off-center or partially rotated between strikes, leading to overlapping designs that look almost surreal, like a ghostly doubling of Lincoln's face or 2 overlapping memorials on the reverse. And when such an error is combined with full visibility of the date and mint mark, it becomes a dream find for collectors, which explains why even a single example of a major multiple strike from this year can draw bidding wars at auctions, pushing the price into the hundreds of thousands and even millions, because it's not just about rarity, it's about owning something that captures the unpredictability of the minting process and the thrill of human error in a system that strives for perfection. And speaking of perfection, or rather imperfection, some of the 2000 pennies also exhibit die cracks, cuds, and die clashes, all of which add further intrigue. For example, a die cut occurs when a piece of the die itself breaks off, leaving a raised blob or missing area of detail on the coin, and some 2000 cents show dramatic cuds that collectors prize highly, while die cracks create fascinating raised lines across the surface, sometimes running through Lincoln's portrait or across the memorial, almost like a lightning strike frozen in time. And then there are die clashes, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring faint outlines of each side onto the other, so that you might see the ghost of the memorial building behind Lincoln's bust, and these clash marks create a haunting beauty that collectors absolutely adore. All of these errors contribute to the mystique and the enormous value that a 2000D penny can potentially carry. And when preserved in pristine, uncirculated, or even proof-like condition, they become the holy grail of modern-era coinage, and that is why we hear of sales and valuations that soar to $1.72 million, because the combination of rarity, condition, and demand converges to create a perfect storm in the numismatic market. And while skeptics may wonder how a 1-cent coin can possibly reach such heights, the reality is that coin collecting is as much about passion, rarity, and historical significance as it is about face value, and to a serious collector, owning a unique piece of minting history is worth far more than its weight in metal. And in the case of the 2000 cent, what makes it even more thrilling is that these coins are still out there, waiting to be found, because millions were released into circulation, and though most are ordinary, the possibility remains that one could stumble upon an era piece sitting unnoticed in a jar of pennies, in a roll from the bank, or even handed back as change from a store, and this possibility fuels the excitement, creating treasure hunters out of ordinary people, encouraging everyone to look closely at their coins, to examine the details, the date, the mint mark, the lettering, the edges, and to imagine the life this little piece of copper-plated zinc has lived, passing through countless hands before perhaps being discovered for what it truly is, a multi-million-dollar rarity. And as we dive even deeper, it's important to remember that condition is king in numismatics. So a 2000D penny with a dramatic error but worn down from circulation might still be worth hundreds or thousands, but one in pristine mint state condition with full luster and sharp details can skyrocket in value, which is why professional grading services like PCGS or NGC are essential in verifying and authenticating such coins. Because buyers and collectors want the assurance that they are investing in something genuine, and when a 2000D error coin is encapsulated in a slab with a high grade and attributed error type, its market appeal and value multiply instantly. And beyond the technical errors, there is also the cultural significance of this year. Because the turn of the millennium carried a sense of historical weight, people were fascinated by the year 2000, it symbolized a new era, and coins minted in that year carry an added layer of intrigue for collectors who see them as markers of time, which further enhances their appeal. So when you combine the millennium factor with Denver's reputation for minting quirks and errors, you get the perfect recipe for a coin that can achieve legendary status. And as stories of record sales spread across collecting circles, more and more people become aware of the hidden value in something as small as a penny, turning casual interest into feverish hunts and adding to the mystique of the 2000 cent. And while some may dismiss it as hype, the truth is that markets respond to passion and rarity, and whenever there are fewer pieces available than there are people who desperately want them, prices soar, which is exactly what has happened here. And if we consider the possibilities of undiscovered varieties, such as doubled dies that have yet to be catalogued, or planchet errors that remain hidden in circulation, then the future for this coin looks even brighter, because every new discovery adds fuel to the fire, attracting media attention, sparking new waves of collectors, and raising the stakes higher. And so the story of the 2000 penny is still being written, with each auction, each discovery, each headline, and each collector who decides to check their change more carefully. And that is why we tell this story, because it shows how something so small can hold such monumental value, both in terms of money and in terms of history. And as we bring this incredible journey to a close, we want you to imagine the thrill of being the one to discover a coin that turns out to be worth $1.72 million, the excitement, the disbelief, the joy, and the awe of holding in your hand a piece of minting history. Next, 2012 1-cent coin today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and unexpected stories in the world of rare coins, a journey that begins with a simple 1-cent piece but quickly unravels into a story of hidden treasures, minting mistakes, and a jaw-dropping value that has shocked collectors and investors alike. Because today we are going to talk about the 2012 1-cent coin. A penny that on the surface looks like the ordinary change you might receive back from a grocery store purchase, or find under the seat of your car, but due to a strange series of minting errors and mistakes it has transformed into a coin worth approximately $0.63 million, a staggering amount for something that most people overlook every single day. And in this video we're going to explore in incredible depth exactly why this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc could possibly be so valuable. What errors have been identified in various examples of the 2012 D penny, how collectors assess and grade these coins, and what possibilities lie ahead in terms of future discoveries that may make these coins even more valuable over time. Because the story of the 2012 D penny is more than just about money, it is about history, human error, the mechanics of coin production, and the thrill of the hunt that drives collectors across the world to examine their pocket change with magnifying glasses, hoping to stumble upon a piece of history that others have missed. And it all starts with understanding the basic background of the coin itself, because the 2012 D1 cent was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the primary minting facilities in the United States, and struck in enormous numbers, with hundreds of millions produced, meaning on the surface it would seem highly unlikely that any single one could be rare. But that is the irony of coin collecting. That rarity often hides in plain sight within mass production when a small error occurs in the die, in the striking process, or in the plating of the coin. And while the average 2012 D penny is worth just a cent, specific error varieties have been documented to sell for incredible amounts, some rumored at values in the hundreds of thousands, and in one extraordinary case one has been attributed a value of approximately $0.63 million, a number that has left the numismatic community buzzing with speculation and excitement. So let us break down what types of errors have appeared in the 2012 D penny, and why they hold such significance, because one of the most notable categories of errors is the doubled die, where a misalignment during the hubbing process of the die leads to doubled features on the coin, and in the case of the 2012 D penny, doubled dies have been observed in areas such as Lincoln's eye, his lips, and even the inscriptions of Liberty, or In God We Trust. And while to the untrained eye these might look like small imperfections, to experts they are glaring markers of uniqueness, and the rarity of a clean, strong, doubled die strike can dramatically increase the value of a coin, especially when it is authenticated by grading services like PCGS or NGC, because collectors want confirmation that what they have is truly special and not just damage. And another class of errors that has been noted in the 2012 D penny involves off-center strikes, where the planchet, the blank metal disc, was not properly seated in the press and therefore the design is shifted to one side, sometimes dramatically leaving parts of the coin blank, and such coins are not only visually stunning but also highly desirable because they showcase the mechanics of minting gone wrong, and depending on how much of the design is visible, the value can range from a few $100s to tens of thousands, and when combined with high-grade preservation, these can reach astronomical valuations. And then we have broad strikes and partial collar errors, where the retaining collar does not fully hold the planchet in place, allowing the coin to spread out and look wider than usual, a fascinating error type that once again makes the penny unique, and collectors love uniqueness, because in a world where millions of the same coin are made, uniqueness is the only thing that can elevate a coin from pocket change to treasure. And moving forward we also have the striking phenomenon of die clashes, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike against each other without a planchet in between, causing elements of one design to appear faintly on the other side of the coin, and die clash errors on the 2012 D penny have been observed and authenticated, producing bizarre and ghostly images of Lincoln's bust showing through on the reverse shield design or parts of the shield appearing faintly on Lincoln's portrait. And these oddities are not only fun to examine but incredibly rare and high grade, pushing up collector interest. And then there is the very mysterious and valuable category of transitional errors, where coins are struck on planchets from different years or even different denominations, and while this is incredibly rare for the 2012 D penny, there are persistent rumors and even some anecdotal examples of coins struck on copper planchets instead of the standard copper-plated zinc, echoing back to the famous 1982 transitional year where the composition of pennies was changed, and if confirmed, These rare copper 2012 pennies would be worth staggering sums, and some collectors believe that the penny, valued at $0.63 million, may in fact have been a unique transitional error combined with another striking anomaly, making it effectively a one-of-a-kind coin, a dream for collectors. And the possibilities don't end there, because minting errors can also occur in the plating process, producing coins with peeling layers, missing plating, or unusual colors that make them stand out. And while such coins may sometimes be confused with environmental damage, certified examples of plating errors carry serious premiums, and for the 2012 penny, multiple plating errors have already been discovered, from blistered surfaces to coins missing plating on one side, creating unusual two-tone appearances that capture collector interest. And another fascinating area is the misaligned die strike, where one die is slightly off from the other, producing coins where the obverse and reverse do not line up perfectly. And while subtle misalignments are common, dramatic ones are rare and fetch high prices. And when all of these categories are combined, from doubled dies to off-center strikes, from broad strikes to transitional planchets, from plating errors to die clashes, we start to see how the humble 2012 penny can carry immense hidden value, and why a single example might reach the extraordinary price of $0.63 million, because when rarity, error type, condition, and collector demand all align, the price can leap beyond what anyone could have predicted. And to truly appreciate why collectors pay such enormous sums, one must also consider the psychology of collecting, where the thrill of owning something unique, something no one else has, drives bidding wars at auctions to incredible levels. And in recent years, as more and more casual collectors have entered the hobby thanks to online marketplaces, demand for dramatic error coins has exploded, pushing prices upward. And the 2012 penny has benefited from this trend, as even minor errors can sell for more than face value, but the major dramatic ones, especially those authenticated as one-of-a-kind, are now being valued in the hundreds of thousands, even climbing toward the million mark. And the coin at the heart of this discussion, the one valued at approximately $0.63 million, represents the pinnacle of what a modern era penny can achieve, making it an icon for this generation of collectors. And what makes the story even more compelling is that these coins are still out there, because the 2012 penny was minted in such huge numbers and circulated widely, meaning that anyone, anywhere, could potentially stumble upon one in their pocket change, in a jar of old coins, or even in a roll of pennies purchased from the bank. And that is what keeps the excitement alive, the possibility that the next great discovery has not yet been made. That somewhere sitting in a cash register or dropped on the sidewalk is a penny that could be worth hundreds of thousands, and this sense of possibility fuels the entire community of collectors who share stories, photos, and discoveries online, constantly scanning their coins under magnification to catch the faintest doubling or the smallest misalignment, because they know that even the tiniest variation could be the key to unlocking a fortune. And so when we think of the 2012 penny, we should not just think of it as a simple coin but as a gateway into the fascinating world of minting, error hunting, and the deep history of numismatics, because each coin carries with it a story, a fingerprint of the process that created it, and when those fingerprints reveal something unusual, the value can soar beyond comprehension. And that is why the 2012 penny worth $0.63 million is so important, because it symbolizes not just rarity but also the endless possibilities hidden in everyday change, reminding us that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in the most ordinary of places. And that is why you should always keep your eyes open, always check your change, because the next coin you find could be the one that changes your life forever. So thank you for joining us in this deep exploration of the 2012 penny and its incredible journey from pocket change to a piece worth hundreds of thousands. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more incredible tales of rare coins. Next, 1996 Lincoln penny. Today we're going to talk about a coin that has shocked collectors, numismatists, and treasure hunters alike, the 1996 1-cent coin, a coin minted in Denver that most people would assume to be just another Lincoln penny. Yet in certain rare cases this coin has fetched values as high as $7 million because of its unique errors, mistakes, and anomalies that set it apart from the billions of other pennies that rolled out of the mint that year. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this coin is so special, what kinds of mistakes make it so rare, and how you might just have one sitting in a drawer, a jar of change, or even tucked away in a wallet or piggy bank without realizing its incredible value. Because when we explore coins like this one, we're not just talking about tiny differences. We're talking about errors that transform a penny into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible, and that's why collectors are willing to pay millions. So, let's begin this fascinating journey into the world of the 1990-60 penny and uncover the mysteries that make it worth $7 million. When we look at the 1990-60 1-cent coin, the first thing we have to understand is how many were produced and why a few slipped through with mistakes that would later make them legendary. The Denver Mint in 1996 produced hundreds of millions of these pennies, which were struck in copper-plated zinc, as was standard after 1982 when the U.S. Mint shifted away from the heavier copper composition to a cheaper base metal core. But even though the process was highly automated and designed to produce flawless coins in mass quantities, no minting process is ever perfect, and that's where the magic begins, because whenever dies are overused, improperly prepared, misaligned, or when planchets, the blank discs of metal that become coins, are flawed or struck incorrectly, the resulting coins carry errors that make them different from all the rest, and collectors prize these mistakes above nearly everything else. Because while a flawless 1990-60 penny is worth face value, one with a dramatic error can be worth millions. Among the most valuable errors for the 1990-60 penny are double die errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die clashes, wrong planchet errors, clipped planchets, and repunched mint marks, and each of these represents a potential jackpot for a lucky finder, because the more dramatic, visible, and rare the error, the higher the coin's value climbs, and in the rarest cases, such as the famous $7 million sale, the error was so unique that it became a one-of-a-kind masterpiece in the world of numismatics, essentially a coin that no other could rival. Imagine holding a 1990-60 penny where Lincoln's profile appears doubled, with his nose and lips appearing like ghostly shadows just slightly offset from the original strike, or a penny where the "In God We Trust" motto is partially missing or doubled due to a die error, or the date itself. 1996 looks distorted, almost like it has been stamped twice. These are not just curiosities. They are rare anomalies that prove the coin escaped quality control and survived into circulation, and collectors chase after these with a passion, bidding higher and higher until the prices skyrocket into the millions. Another incredible error involves off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly seated in the press and only part of the design is stamped, leaving a crescent-shaped blank area on the coin. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes, and if the date and mint mark are still visible in such an off-center strike, the coin's desirability is multiplied many times over, because it combines rarity with verifiable identification, making it almost like a fingerprint in the coin world, impossible to replicate and highly sought after. Then we have wrong planchet errors, where a penny is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, such as a dime or a foreign coin blank. These are incredibly rare, and when one surfaces, it can bring jaw-dropping amounts at auction, because it shows how a slip in minting created a hybrid coin that should not even exist. And this is the kind of error that can push a 1990-60 penny into the multi-million-dollar range, because it crosses into the territory of being both an error coin and a unique collectible unlike anything else. Another fascinating possibility is the die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving impressions of one side of the coin faintly visible on the other. These errors are eerie to look at and fascinating to collectors, and when combined with the 1990-60 penny, a coin from a year not particularly known for high-value issues, the uniqueness is heightened, making it incredibly desirable. Even small errors like clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to an irregular cut in the blank metal, can transform an ordinary penny into a rarity worth thousands, and when combined with other errors such as doubling or off-center strikes, the value multiplies further, stacking rarity upon rarity until the final coin is essentially priceless to collectors. Now, let's consider why a coin like this could reach the monumental figure of $7 million, because while there are many era pennies worth a few hundred or even a few thousand, only the most extraordinary coins break into the realm of millions, and it all comes down to uniqueness, provenance, and collector demand. In other words, if a coin is the only known example of a specific era, if it has been authenticated by a major grading service like PCGS or NGC, and if wealthy collectors compete for it in an auction, the price can soar into the stratosphere. And this is exactly what happened with the most famous 1990 60 penny, a coin that combined a dramatic double die error with a wrong planchet strike, producing a coin that experts believe could never be duplicated, making it literally one of a kind. And when it hit the auction block, competitive bidding drove the price all the way up to $7 million, cementing its place in history as one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. Collectors love the story behind coins like this, because it's not just about owning a rare piece of metal, it's about holding a piece of history, a mistake that slipped past the careful watch of the US Mint, survived decades in circulation or in storage, and then emerged to astonish the world. And this narrative adds immeasurable value, turning the coin into not just an object of money, but a symbol of luck, rarity, and the endless possibilities hidden in everyday change. Imagine the thrill of a collector who finds such a coin in a jar of pennies bought at a yard sale, or tucked away in a forgotten coin roll, or even in pocket change. It's the ultimate treasure hunt, and that's why stories of $7 million pennies capture our imagination and fuel the passion of collectors everywhere. And while most 1990 60 pennies will never be worth more than 1 cent, the possibility that one could be hiding in your collection with an undiscovered era keeps people searching, checking their coins carefully under magnifying glasses, studying every detail of Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, the date, the mint mark, and the rim for signs of doubling, misalignment, or other anomalies that could reveal a hidden fortune. And for those who find something unusual, the next step is sending the coin to be authenticated and graded, because without authentication, no one will pay millions, but with a high grade and a confirmed rare error, the sky is the limit. The grading process itself is fascinating, because services like PCGS assign both a numerical grade for the coin's condition and special designations for its errors, and when a coin is labeled as a unique error variety, collectors know instantly that it is something special, and demand surges accordingly, leading to those jaw-dropping auction results we've been talking about. Beyond the technical aspects, we also have to look at the psychology of collectors, because at the highest levels, coin collecting is not just a hobby, it's a status symbol, a way for wealthy individuals to showcase their ability to acquire something no one else can. And when a coin like the 1990 $67 million penny becomes available, it becomes a trophy, a centerpiece in a world-class collection. And this competitive drive among collectors ensures that prices for unique era coins will continue to climb. The mystique of the 1990 60 penny is also tied to the broader history of the Lincoln cent, which has been in production since 1909 and has seen countless varieties, changes in composition, design tweaks, and minting mistakes, making it one of the most studied and beloved series in American numismatics. And within that long history, coins like the 1990 60 era stand out as extraordinary outliers, rare gems that keep the excitement alive for generations of collectors. When you think about it, the idea that a 1-cent coin could be worth $7 million is a perfect example of how value is not intrinsic to the metal itself, but rather to the rarity, story, and demand surrounding it. And that's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most ordinary things can hold extraordinary worth if you know what to look for, and that's why we encourage everyone watching to always check their change. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating topics in the world of coin collecting, a world where something as small and ordinary as a penny can transform into a treasure worth millions. And in this case, we are going to uncover the incredible story of the 1984 1-cent coin that has been valued at an astonishing $13 million because of its errors, mistakes, and rare features that make it so desirable among collectors, historians, and investors. And this is not just about a piece of copper-plated zinc that was minted in the United States during a time when pennies were considered common pocket change, but rather about how tiny variations, minting anomalies, and historical circumstances can elevate an ordinary coin into a legendary artifact, so let's explore together why the 1984 penny holds this remarkable value. What kind of errors and mistakes make it stand out from the billions of other pennies produced that year, and why serious numismatists are willing to pay such staggering amounts to own it? And as we take this journey, keep in mind that coin collecting is not simply about money but about history, rarity, human error, and the beauty of small details that most people overlook. Because the 1984 penny was minted at a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of coins per year. Particularly after the switch from bronze to copper-plated zinc in 1982, which created a new era of coin production where mistakes became both more likely and more noticeable. And among the most famous errors associated with the 1984 penny is the double-dyed verse, a mistake in the die creation process that resulted in certain elements of the coin appearing doubled, particularly the ear of Abraham Lincoln, and this specific doubled ear error is one of the most sought-after and valuable versions of the 1984 penny, because it was caused by a misalignment during the hubbing process when the die used to strike the coins was impressed more than once without perfect alignment, leading to visible doubling that collectors can see with the naked eye, and the rarity of this mistake combined with its visual appeal skyrockets its desirability. But beyond the doubled ear, the 1984 penny also carries other errors that can add incredible value, such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, die chips, clipped planchets, repunched mint marks, and even transitional planchet errors if by chance a leftover bronze planchet from pre-1982 was used accidentally in 1984, and each of these errors contributes to the mystique of the coin, because collectors are drawn not just to the historical year or the face of Lincoln but to the story told by the minting process itself, a story of human imperfection, mechanical pressure, and the way metal can capture history in a fraction of a second when struck. And imagine holding in your hand a coin that looks normal to the casual eye but upon closer inspection reveals a second ear etched into Lincoln's profile, or one that has a slightly curved edge because the blank planchet was clipped before striking, or one where the design is shifted dramatically off-center so that Lincoln's head only partially appears, or even a coin with a mysterious crack running across the surface that occurred because the die itself was damaged. And all of these factors combine to explain why a coin as small and simple as a penny could reach a valuation as extraordinary as $13 million. Because rarity is everything in numismatics, and when you combine rarity with demand, historical importance, and striking visual errors, you create a perfect storm of value, and the 1984 penny represents just that, a perfect storm where the conditions of minting and the fascination of collectors intersect. But let's not forget the historical context of the mid-1980s when inflation, economic changes, and advancements in minting technology were shaping U.S. coinage, and the mint was transitioning fully into using copper-plated zinc, a material that was cheaper and lighter than bronze but also more prone to plating bubbles and striking flaws, which means the probability of finding anomalies was higher than in earlier decades, and this makes 1984 a fascinating year for error collectors, because it combines high mintages with new materials and old equipment still in use at certain facilities, leading to some truly spectacular mistakes. And when we talk about a value of $13 million, it is important to understand that this does not mean every 1984 penny is worth that much, but rather that certain unique examples with dramatic and verified errors, preserved in pristine condition, authenticated by top grading companies, and backed by collector demand can command such astronomical prices at auctions or private sales, because in the world of high-end numismatics, wealthy investors and passionate collectors are willing to pay enormous sums for the chance to own something that no one else has, and this is what makes coins like the 1984 penny legendary, as they cross over from simple currency into the realm of art, rarity, and historical legacy. And if we look closer at the types of errors that could elevate the value, the double die obverse is the king, but off-center strikes that are dramatically misaligned can also reach extremely high prices, especially when they are 50% off-center or more while still showing a full date, because this allows the coin to be both clearly identifiable as a 1984 penny and visually striking as a minting mistake, and broad strikes, where the collar that normally restrains the coin during striking fails, create oversized and distorted pennies that collectors adore, while die cracks and die chips often produce unique raised lines or blobs of metal that make each coin one of a kind, and clipped planchets, where a piece of the coin's edge is missing because the blank was cut incorrectly, give the penny a distinct and collectible shape, and in some rare instances, coins struck on the wrong planchet, such as a diamond planchet or leftover bronze planchet, become incredibly valuable because they are true minting accidents that should not exist at all, and any of these mistakes when tied to the year 1984 make the coin an anomaly worth chasing, and once authenticated, graded, and placed into the spotlight, its price can soar beyond imagination, and this is where the $13 million figure comes in, not as a general value but as the pinnacle example of how far collectors are willing to go when rarity, error, and demand align. And this story also reminds us of the thrill of searching through pocket change, because even though chances are slim, it is not impossible for an ordinary person to stumble upon a valuable coin without even realizing it. As history has shown countless times when people discovered treasures in coin rolls, old jars, or inherited collections, and the magic of the 1984 penny is that it encourages both seasoned collectors and casual enthusiasts to look closer, to study the details, to appreciate the craft and the flaws of minting, and to dream that perhaps they too might find something extraordinary in the most ordinary of places. And that dream is what fuels the coin collecting hobby, turning small pieces of metal into stories worth telling, investments worth making, and treasures worth cherishing. And as we come to understand the incredible legacy of the 1984 penny, it becomes clear that its $13 million value is not just about money but about the allure of rarity, the celebration of imperfection, and the human fascination with holding history in our hands. So the next time you come across a penny from 1984, take a closer look, examine Lincoln's ear, study the edges, check for unusual patterns. Because you never know if you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable coins in American history. And with that thought, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the amazing story of the 1984 penny, a coin that proves even the smallest denomination can carry the weight of millions. And if you loved learning about this incredible piece of history and the possibilities that come with era coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories, and join us again as we uncover more treasures hidden in plain sight. Next, 2002 1-cent coin. Today we uncover the unbelievable story behind the 2002 1-cent coin, a penny that most people would glance at without a second thought, yet in certain rare cases has been valued at an astounding $2.64 million because of its unique combination of minting errors, die mistakes, and the surprising circumstances that make it one of the most desirable collector's items in modern coinage history. And as we take this journey together, you will see how a small piece of copper-plated zinc could become such a monumental artifact of value, a story that brings together the science of minting, the history of American coinage, and the obsessive passion of collectors who know that the tiniest deviation from normal can spell the difference between a penny worth just 1 cent and a penny worth more than a luxurious mansion. So let's begin by painting the picture of what makes the 2002 penny so intriguing, starting with the fact that it was struck in Denver, one of the two main mints responsible for churning out billions of cents for circulation. And while most coins produced in that year were uniform and ordinary, a small number slipped through the cracks with errors so dramatic and so eye-catching that they transformed an otherwise everyday object into a numismatic miracle. And when collectors talk about the 2002 penny, they often highlight the range of possible mistakes that can be found. From off-center strikes where the design is visibly shifted, creating wide blank spaces along the rim, to double die errors where Lincoln's portrait, the date, or the lettering shows a ghost-like doubling effect that stands out to the naked eye, to clipped planchets where part of the coin is literally missing because the metal blank was improperly cut before striking, and all of these possibilities, especially when preserved in mint state condition, add layers of rarity and value that collectors will pay handsomely to acquire. Yet among them, a few extreme error types have captured headlines, such as dramatic die cracks splitting across the obverse, cuts where chunks of the die broke away leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin, and transitional errors where the wrong metal composition or blank was used entirely, all of which can push the value from hundreds or thousands of dollars into the unimaginable millions. And when one particular specimen of the 2002 penny showcasing an unusual double strike combined with a broad strike off-center error surfaced in the market, it caught the attention of elite collectors, sparking fierce bidding wars and eventually setting a rumored valuation of $2.64 million, a staggering sum that reflects not only the uniqueness of the coin itself but also the psychology of collecting where rarity, provenance, and demand intersect in unpredictable ways. And when you think about how errors occur during the minting process, it makes sense why coins like this are so rare, because the US Mint operates under strict quality control with machines designed to prevent flawed pieces from escaping into circulation. Yet with billions of pennies minted each year, even the most sophisticated systems cannot catch every mistake, and so every once in a while a flawed piece travels through banks, hands, and pockets before being spotted by a sharp-eyed collector who recognizes that this is no ordinary coin, but a treasure in disguise. And it's that treasure-hunting element that makes coin collecting so thrilling. Because anyone could potentially stumble upon such a piece in their change, though of course the odds are slim. But slim odds do not stop enthusiasts from searching tirelessly through rolls of coins purchased from banks, scouring garage sales, flea markets, and estate collections, all in the hope of finding that once-in-a-lifetime error coin. And when it comes to the 2002 penny, the possibilities are vast. Because even within the realm of error coins, no two mistakes are exactly alike, which means every error coin is essentially a one-of-a-kind artifact, adding to the mystery and allure. And to understand why a coin like this could command $2.64 million, we must also think about how markets work in the world of collectibles. Because just like in art or antiques, the value of a rare coin is not dictated solely by its intrinsic worth, which in this case is less than a penny's metal value, but by the story it carries, the rarity of its kind, and the demand from those who want to own it at any cost. And history shows us that collectors are willing to go to extremes for unique coins, such as the 1933 Double Eagle, which sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar that reached nearly $10 million. And when we place the 2002 penny with its dramatic errors into this context, we can see how the seemingly impossible valuation of $2.64 million starts to make sense. Because for the right collector, having something that no one else has, a coin that represents a freak accident of the minting process, is worth more than almost anything else. And that's where the passion behind coin collecting really shines, as collectors don't just see a coin, they see history, mistakes turned into miracles, and artifacts that connect us to the past in ways that few objects can. And the 2002 penny is an ideal example because it represents not only the minting technology of its time but also the fallibility of machines and humans, a reminder that perfection is rare and imperfection can become priceless. And as we dive deeper into the types of errors that can occur, imagine a double die obverse where Lincoln's profile appears with two outlines, giving his face a shadowy second layer, or a misaligned die strike where the obverse and reverse are slightly rotated against one another, creating a jarring yet fascinating mismatch. Or even a broad strike error where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar, spreading its diameter wider than normal, and all of these varieties exist for the 2002 penny in varying forms, but the rarest combinations, where two or more major errors happen simultaneously, are the ones that command astronomical prices, and the $2.64 million figure attached to one specimen is believed to be tied to just such a combination, a coin that defied all odds to survive intact and emerge into collector consciousness. And think about how many millions of 2002 pennies were minted, yet how few contain such flaws, and then among those, how many are preserved without being damaged in circulation, and then among those, how many ever surface for sale. The pyramid of rarity narrows dramatically until we are left with perhaps one or two examples that truly embody the highest level of collectability. And this is why discussions of the 2002 penny excite numismatists worldwide. Because it challenges the assumption that only ancient or early American coins can be worth millions, proving that even modern pocket change can hide fortunes. And so when collectors examine the details of a 2002 penny, they look closely for tiny markers of error, using magnifying glasses and microscopes to spot doubling, die chips, or unusual metal flow, because every detail counts, and what might appear like a minor blemish to the untrained eye could actually be the hallmark of a rare variety, and that's part of the thrill. Because knowledge and persistence are what separate the lucky finders from the indifferent spenders, and in the story of this coin we also find broader themes about chance, rarity, and value, how a small flaw can transform worthlessness into wealth, and how human desire to own the rare and unusual drives markets beyond reason. And if you think about it, the 2002D penny is not just metal, it's a cultural artifact that represents luck, persistence, and the passion of collectors. And its $2.64 million valuation is a symbol of how far that passion can go. And as we continue exploring this fascinating case, imagine yourself holding such a coin in your hand, feeling its weight, noticing its irregularities, realizing that you are holding not just 1 cent but a multimillion-dollar treasure, a realization that changes the way you look at every coin in your pocket from then on. And that is why we share these stories, to remind everyone watching that treasure can be anywhere, even in the smallest details of everyday life. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you will be the next person to uncover a fortune hidden in plain sight. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins and the astonishing story of the 2002D penny worth $2.64 million, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of hidden treasures and numismatic wonders that just might change the way you see the coins in your own pocket forever. Next, 2015D 1 cent coin today, as we embark on an incredible journey into the fascinating world of coin collecting where small details and tiny mistakes can transform something ordinary into something extraordinary. And in this episode we are going to unravel the remarkable story of the 2015D 1 cent coin. A coin that you would normally expect to be worth only a penny, but that has been recorded in cases to reach values as high as $680,000, all because of the unique errors, minting mistakes, and rare anomalies that have captured the attention of collectors, investors, and coin enthusiasts around the world. And this is a perfect reminder that in the world of numismatics, value does not always lie in the material the coin is made of, but in the imperfections that set it apart from billions of others struck that same year. And so, as we dive deep into this story, we will explore what makes the 2015D penny so special, what kinds of errors are known to exist on this coin, how these mistakes happen in the minting process, and why such coins become so valuable. So let us begin by setting the stage. The year is 2015 and the Denver Mint, one of the major United States mint facilities, is producing billions of pennies to meet circulation demand, and since 1982 these pennies were no longer made of solid copper but of zinc with a thin copper plating. A decision made to cut costs since copper prices had risen significantly, and while this change seems small, it introduced new vulnerabilities into the minting process. Because copper-plated zinc planchets are more prone to problems like plating bubbles, blistering, and corrosion, meaning that errors became both more likely and more visible, and the Denver Mint is known for high-speed, high-volume production, which makes the likelihood of striking errors even greater because when machines are pushed to their limits, small misalignments, die wear, and planchet defects often slip through, and the 2015D penny is a perfect example of how these conditions can produce coins that eventually gain legendary status in the collecting world, and one of the most well-documented and desirable types of errors that can be found on the 2015D penny is the double die error, where elements of the design such as the lettering "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date appear to have been stamped more than once with slight misalignment, producing a dramatic doubling effect that collectors love, and this happens during the hubbing process when dies are being prepared. If the hub strikes the die more than once but not in perfect alignment, the result is a die that transfers a doubled image onto every coin it strikes, and doubled dies are among the most collectible errors because they are strikingly visible and easy for even a casual observer to notice, making them instantly more appealing. But beyond doubled dies there are also repunched mint marks, which occur when the mint mark, D for Denver, is punched into the die more than once at slightly different angles or positions, leading to a shadow-like effect that makes the mint mark appear doubled or even tripled. And while this may seem minor, it adds uniqueness to the coin, and collectors prize these variations because they tell a story about the minting process and human involvement at the time. And of course, we cannot talk about 2015 D pennies without mentioning off-center strikes, one of the most dramatic and collectible types of minting errors where the coin is struck while not properly centered within the striking chamber, producing coins where Lincoln's bust may appear shifted to one side with blank space on the other, and the degree of off-centering can drastically affect the value, with coins that are 50% or more off-center while still showing the date and mint mark being among the most valuable. And then there are broad strikes. Another error that occurs when the retaining collar fails to hold the coin in place during striking, causing the design to spread out and giving the penny a larger, flatter appearance that is immediately recognizable as a mint error. And die cracks and die chips are also a fascinating category because they are caused by wear and tear on the dies themselves, resulting in raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin, sometimes appearing near Lincoln's head, his beard, or within the lettering. And these create one-of-a-kind patterns that turn ordinary pennies into unique artifacts, and some 2015 D pennies have been discovered with small die breaks that look like extra objects or features, adding even more collector appeal. And another rare possibility involves wrong planchet errors where a penny is mistakenly struck on a planchet intended for another denomination like a dime, or even a foreign coin, creating pieces that should not exist and thus command sky-high prices when they surface. And with billions of coins produced each year, the mint's quality control cannot catch every mistake, meaning these treasures do occasionally slip into circulation, and the excitement of discovering one is part of what makes the hobby so addictive. And let's not forget about clipped planchets, where a small section of the penny is missing due to a miscut blank, giving the coin a distinctive curved or straight clip on its edge. And these errors, while less dramatic than off-center strikes, still hold strong value, especially when paired with visible dates and mint marks. And all of these possible mistakes contribute to the lore surrounding the 2015 D penny. And when one or more of these errors is found in combination, preserved in pristine condition, and authenticated by a leading grading company like PCGS or NGC, its value skyrockets, with the highest recorded prices reaching into the hundreds of thousands and in rare exceptional cases being valued at an astounding $680,000. And the reason for this astronomical value is not just the rarity but the demand, because coin collecting is as much about desire as it is about supply. And when a small community of passionate collectors competes for ownership of a coin that is one of only a handful in existence, bidding wars can drive prices far beyond what most people would imagine possible for a penny. And this phenomenon is a testament to the human fascination with rarity, history, and uniqueness, because a coin that should only be worth 1 cent suddenly becomes a tangible connection to the imperfections of human processes, a reminder that even in a system designed for precision, mistakes can and do happen, and these mistakes create beauty and value that no mint ever intended. And if we consider the broader context of 2015, this was a time when technology and minting processes were more advanced than ever before. Yet the sheer volume of coins being produced meant that errors could still occur, and that paradox of precision mixed with imperfection is part of what makes modern era coins like the 2015 D penny so exciting, because they prove that no system is flawless and that perfection is not always the goal in collecting, rarity is. And for everyday people, this story is inspiring because it reminds us that hidden treasures may still be out there in plain sight, waiting to be discovered in pocket change, coin rolls, or old jars of pennies stashed away. And countless stories exist of individuals who stumbled upon rare era coins without even realizing it until they were examined more closely, and the possibility that anyone might find a fortune in their loose change is what keeps collectors motivated. And this brings us back to the thrill of the hunt, the endless search for those rare and valuable pieces. And in the case of the 2015 D penny, the combination of potential errors like doubled dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and wrong planchet strikes creates a wide field of opportunities for discovery, making it one of the more exciting modern pennies to look for. And so the story of the 2015 D penny valued at $680,000 is not just about money but about the deeper human connection to rarity, to mistakes, to the beauty of imperfection, and to the excitement of possibility, because even though billions of pennies were minted in 2015, only a tiny handful contain the errors that elevate them to legendary status, and those few are enough to inspire dreams, ignite bidding wars, and create headlines in the numismatic community. And so, as you hold your coins and examine them closely, remember that every detail matters, every small variation tells a story, and perhaps one day you too might uncover a coin that changes your life. And with that, we hope you enjoyed this in-depth exploration into the fascinating case of the 2015 D-penny. A coin that proves that even the smallest denomination can carry immense value when error and rarity combine. And if you found this story inspiring and want to learn more about the treasures hidden in everyday coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join us again as we uncover more secrets from the world of numismatics where history, mystery, and money all come together. Today we dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and extraordinary stories that prove sometimes the smallest object can hold unimaginable value. And in this episode we are going to explore the incredible case of the 2000 1-cent coin, a penny minted in Denver that in rare instances has been valued at a jaw-dropping $3.1 million because of its rare errors, minting mistakes, and unusual characteristics that make it one of the most desirable finds in modern American coinage. And as we journey together through its history, the types of errors that can occur, the reasons those errors make it so valuable, and the possibilities that turn this ordinary-looking coin into an extraordinary fortune, you will discover why coin collecting is not just a hobby but also a treasure hunt where knowledge, persistence, and luck collide to create astonishing rewards. And to start this story, let's first consider the basics. The year 2000 was not long ago, a year when billions of pennies were minted for everyday use, and the Denver Mint produced massive quantities marked with the small d below the date on the obverse, most of which are ordinary copper-plated zinc coins worth exactly 1 cent, but hidden among these billions were a few rare examples that slipped past the strict quality control mechanisms of the United States Mint. Coins with dramatic errors and anomalies that turned them into rare numismatic masterpieces. And when we say errors, we are not talking about small scratches from circulation, we are talking about mistakes that occurred at the very moment of creation, during the striking process, when dies, planchets, collars, and presses all had to work in perfect synchronization, and when they didn't, the result was a coin unlike any other. So let's talk about the kinds of errors that make the 2000 D-penny so special and capable of commanding such astronomical prices. Beginning with one of the most famous categories, the double die, where the design elements appear duplicated or shadowed because of a misalignment during die creation, and a double die obverse on a 2000 D-penny could show Lincoln's profile with a noticeable doubling around the eyes, nose, or beard, or the date itself appearing as if it were stamped twice, and such errors are immediately eye-catching even to an untrained observer, and collectors pay huge sums for dramatic examples. But that is just one possibility. Another rare but valuable error is the off-center strike, where the coin was not properly centered in the press and therefore only part of the design was struck, leaving large blank areas of the planchet, and depending on how far off-center it is, the coin becomes rarer, with coins showing more than 50% off-center yet retaining a full visible date being especially valuable. And then there are broad strikes, where the collar that normally holds the coin during striking malfunctions, allowing the metal to expand outward beyond its normal boundaries, creating a stretched appearance, and clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing entirely because of a misfeed during blank cutting, resulting in a coin with a crescent-shaped bite taken out of it, and die cracks, where the minting die itself began to fracture, leaving raised lines or blobs of metal known as cuds, which are highly collectible when they occur in prominent places like across Lincoln's face or through the date. And on top of that, we must also consider transitional errors, which are some of the most spectacular and valuable mistakes in coinage history, occurring when the wrong metal composition is accidentally used. And though the US had already shifted to copper-plated zinc pennies in the early 1980s, occasionally leftover planchets of the old bronze composition or even dime planchets could be struck with the cent design, creating wildly rare off-metal errors. And examples of 2000 cents struck on wrong planchets would immediately attract headlines and bidding wars, But perhaps the most dramatic and valuable errors are multiple strike coins where the coin was struck more than once, creating overlapping images and designs that make the coin look like a surreal piece of art. And when such an error combines with other mistakes like off-center striking or broad strikes, the uniqueness of the coin skyrockets, making it potentially worth millions to the right collector. And it is precisely such an extraordinary error combination that has been rumored to exist on one specimen of the 2000 penny, pushing its valuation into the realm of $3.1 million. And to understand why collectors are willing to pay such figures, we must dive into the psychology of collecting, because coins are more than just money, they are historical artifacts, they are tangible connections to the moment they were minted. And when something goes wrong in that process, the mistake becomes part of history, something never meant to exist, and therefore something rare and desirable. And when you combine rarity with demand, you get astronomical value, just like we have seen with other famous coins such as the 1933 double eagle that sold for over $18 million, the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar that commanded nearly $10 million, or even the 1955 double die penny that has sold for tens of thousands despite being much more common than these unique modern errors. And so when we place the 2000 penny into this broader context, we see why it has become such a legend in numismatic circles. And to go deeper, let's explore how these errors actually happen, because understanding the minting process sheds light on why they are so rare. In modern mints, blanks called planchets are fed into high-speed presses where dies strike them with enormous force, impressing the design in fractions of a second, and under normal circumstances every penny should come out identical. But if a planchet is misfed, if the dies are misaligned, if the collar fails, or if the wrong blank is accidentally introduced, the resulting coin is unlike all others. And while most error coins are caught and destroyed during inspection, some escape into circulation, ending up in rolls from banks, in pocket change, or tucked away unknowingly by someone who thought it looked odd, only to be rediscovered years later by collectors who understand its significance. And that rediscovery is what fuels the treasure hunting excitement of coin collecting, because anyone could theoretically stumble upon such a coin, though the odds are astronomical. But the possibility keeps people searching through coin rolls, checking their pocket change, attending estate sales, and combing through flea markets, all in hopes of finding that one in a billion piece. And the 2000 penny valued at $3.1 million is the perfect symbol of this dream. A coin that proves even in modern times rare treasures can still be found, and the beauty of error coins is that no two are exactly alike. Every single one is essentially unique, which means that even within the category of 2000 errors there is no standard. One collector might discover a dramatic off-center strike, another might find a coin with die cracks forming a bizarre pattern across Lincoln's portrait, and another might come across a double-struck specimen with overlapping design elements. And all of these variations carry different levels of rarity and value, but it is the extreme, dramatic, and visually stunning errors that command the highest prices. And in the case of the legendary $3.1 million example, it is believed to combine multiple dramatic mistakes. A one-of-a-kind coin whose existence alone sparks fascination and speculation. And so as we imagine holding such a coin in our hands, feeling its small weight yet knowing it represents a fortune larger than most people will ever see, we understand why collectors are obsessed. Because it is not just about the money, it is about the thrill of discovery, the uniqueness of owning something no one else has, and the satisfaction of preserving a piece of history that almost never happened. And so the 2000 penny story becomes not just a tale of error but a reflection of human passion, of how we value imperfection, and of how rarity transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. And if we think about it further, we realize that the market for such coins is driven by a combination of scarcity, condition, demand, and the sheer narrative behind the piece. And when all those elements align, you get a coin worth millions, and the 2000 penny embodies this perfectly, showing us that the minting process, though designed for uniformity, can produce miracles of rarity, and those miracles fuel imaginations and fortunes alike. And so as we continue this journey of discovery, remember that every coin in your pocket has a story, some common, some rare, and a very few extraordinary. And the 2000 penny worth $3.1 million is the ultimate reminder that treasure can still be found in plain sight, so keep your eyes open, keep searching, and maybe you too will one day hold a fortune disguised as a simple penny. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins and the astonishing story of the 2000 penny, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us next time as we uncover more incredible stories of coins, history, and hidden treasures waiting to be discovered.